4, episode 5. We've got Alan Kay with the Shift EQ podcast. And man, are we ready for this conversation. Him and I got a chance to have fun talking about the certain topics that we're going to stir back up tonight. And we are officially on X Spaces Live right now. So welcome to that audience. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook, Instagram Live on the Storm Classic International page. And yes, of course, our YouTube Storm Classic International page. So Alan, you're a superstar. How do you feel, man?
Well, I feel like a superstar now, now that I'm on the other side of being a host. I'm not gonna lie to you, Matt. I'm kind of nervous as to see where this is gonna go because I'm used to being on the end of controlling the conversation. So now that I'm the subject of conversation, I guess we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, well, it's time that we put you in the hot seat because I think you have a lot of information that I've seen your different broadcasts that you have done with a lot of the natty orgs and leaders, athletes, and I think it's starting a, I don't want to say a revolution, but I will say it's starting a movement that's allowing people to maybe open their eyes to the things in the sport that we are noticing, but people aren't doing anything about. So how did you get your start in bodybuilding?
Oh man, how did I get my start in bodybuilding? Well, if I were to be really honest, it started when I was a kid. I was very insecure, didn't think highly of myself. Anything stigmatizing all the way to like the narrative of being an Asian man and how that used to like emasculate in some dynamic, especially with all the stereotypes back in the 90s. So in my mind, I needed to build myself up. I needed to build my attributes, and that started with working out. Now, that changed and that shifted into when I started seeing the results. I started working out and I started eating a little bit better and started getting bigger. I started noticing that started becoming a little bit more respect. And then I started playing football. Then I went into the military. And that just kind of just played on from there until now.
Interesting. So being the little guy, when you started to see mass coming on, really what was the organization or federation that you were kind of drifting toward, and what did you like about them?
So if I were to be honest, it's not really the organization that drew me in. It was just more of what was available to me and what was nearby. So for me, my very first time ever competing, I was trying to find a smaller show, nothing in California, because California is very, man, I don't want to say superficial, but there's definitely a lot of buff people out here in SoCal and LA. So I honestly just looked for a small city. So I found a show in Tucson that was hosted by the OCB. And then from there on out, I kind of just stuck with the OCB because it was just something I was comfortable, something I knew, the flow of it. And yeah, definitely just kind of stuck with that.
So the OCB is where you got your start. You probably met some people along the way. Now we have OCB, we have USBF, we've got NFF, we've got Onyx. We've got all these natural organizations that have kind of put a foothold and kind of position themselves in a way to where they want to be the organization. Where do you think the challenge of the sport, with all of these different organizations, what challenges are they facing by staying separate, or what challenges would they face by trying to merge? We'll get you back right here in just a second. I know that was such a question. He jumped off as fast as he could. Oh man, you'll get back into the waiting room here in just a second. But we've had these conversations very, very much so lately because we're finding that a lot of the organizations, whether it be tested or non-tested, we're finding that the numbers are in most cases suffering. So we want to be able to kind of revive or give CPR to especially the productions that we feel are giving athletes more. And we've also found that that's a struggle because there's only so much to go around when an athlete chooses to compete, where they compete, how much they can spend in a given year. More importantly, what are they going to do to get more exposure? So Alan's going to be covering that hopefully in a little bit and getting more to that context, because really where we found, and I just saw a partnership ended with another organization this week, which, it was extremely crippling and setting them back to where they were putting a large chunk of their organization. We saw this happen multiple times. And so why do people leave? why do partnerships fail? And I think that's where we really haven't discussed as much, because most people don't know about it unless it's publicly announced, or somebody knows about it and they spread it like wildfire, and all of a sudden there's more questions involved, like, well, why did they split? What happened? And what I found is the partnerships that are solid are the ones that are based on trust, integrity, reciprocity, and being able to make it a good fit for both ends. So maybe it wasn't a good fit. We understand things happen. Some people move on, some people don't. We get that. But we're seeing more and more of it recently, especially coming up in 2024 as the season is winding down from 2023. We want to know what's going to happen in 2024. So let's get Alan back in here. And you know what? I got to tell you, that was I heard when I saw you get the question, you immediately bolted. I totally get it.
Yeah. No, I think there's something going on. We ask all the political questions, and all of a sudden someone is like, nope, exit this guy out of here. Exit. Nope, we're not going to talk about it.
So I have to say, before you answer this, you have to hear the comments. So Courtney and Tony were like, dude, been waiting for someone to grill Alan, finally. And then she said, he didn't want any touch. Boom, gone. So we will get into this because this is pretty important. But I'd like to know, first of all, did you get the question, or did we cut before that?
I got a part of it. So if we can ask that question again, that'd be great. And I promise you, I won't try to run away this time. Geez.
Daryl's like, partnerships that succeed are based on a business model rather than a hope and oh, buddy. Daryl, you're on board, my man. This is what I wanted to ask you. Why are organizations, what's the setback? Why are they having trouble either merging, or why are they having trouble staying independent?
Man, I think you hit it on the head during our podcast, which is, I think too many organizations want to be the organization, and they're making more about their brand rather than the sport. And they make it more about the federation than they do about the athlete. And what you see is just everything is so stretched thin. And if I were to be really, really honest, from a newcomer that's coming in, it just seems like I walked into an industry of a bunch of limiting beliefs and selfish limiting beliefs. And it just seems like no matter what athletes try to do to make it about the athletes, that the organizations make it about the organizations instead. You know, I'm glad that Daryl's on here, because Daryl does a phenomenal job of making it about the athletes. And his Florida Pro is my God, it's a great example of what happens when you put the athletes first and you make it about the athletes. And he has such a phenomenal show. And it was great for me to see, who has been part of, I don't want to say lackluster OCB shows, but then to go from that to the Florida Pro and see the synergy and feel that energy, like that's a show that I want to be part of every single year now because of what Daryl puts out there. And you could tell he is all about the athlete. So again, just to kind of wrap everything up, it just feels like a lot of these organizations, they see what natural bodybuilding can do, and they want to be the Olympia when you're fighting an uphill battle. And it just seems like a lot of people need to change out, or at least get rid of their egos, and for us to come together. That's for sure.
Now we're going to switch topics here. This is going to throw you for a loop. My apologies early on, but we might as well throw the curveball now.
Okay.
What do you really see difference-wise with natural bodybuilding and non-tested bodybuilding? Why isn't natural bodybuilding in the Olympia limelight like the Olympia is non-tested?
Well, I feel, honestly, with the enhanced community, there is a very definitive champion in each category. And because there is a definitive champion, there is a definitive end of year show. It adds value to all the other sub shows that happen during the year. So therefore it's like, you know, like for example, you have Chris Bum, you know, damn well Chris Bum is the classic physique champion. But in natural bodybuilding, you have Carolina, you have Jay, you have Chidozi, you have people that I've never even heard of. And because there are so many classic physique champions, it's kind of hard to make just one. Whereas if we would just all come together under one umbrella, make it one final, oh, hey, this is the classic physique champion of natural bodybuilding, I think that's exactly what's holding natty bodybuilding back. And if we kind of merge I don't want to say merge the federations together, but let's say you're to get your own respective champion in each federation, like the OCB classic guy versus the USBF plus classic guy. And then you have that, and then you have them all compete together. That adds value on so many different ends. Not only does it still add value to the overall sport, but it then adds value to each single federation. And because, like, let's say I was a USBF classic physique champion, somehow, some way, I just got bigger, and all of a sudden, and I know I got to compete against someone that's in the OCB, then I would all of a sudden be paying attention to the OCB. I wouldn't make it, oh, I need to make it about my federation. No, I know that when I see someone, the other federation, and this is who I got to compete against, then it's like, oh shit, game on. You know what I mean? And if I were to, of all the athletes that I've interviewed, at least all the top athletes, that's what they want to do. They want to compete. They want there to be a definitive champion, and they want to get rid of all this bullshit politics that's going on in all these federations.
Man, that's so well put. And for those of you who joined us just on X Spaces, I saw a bunch of you joining. We're talking with Alan Kay, Shift EQ Podcast. Make sure and follow him on Instagram. The thing that I really loved the most was during these podcasts, we get to interact, but more importantly, for those of you watching, you get to interact. So I am seeing a stream of comments. And if you have a question for Alan, maybe we can get into some questions as far as maybe what you have if you've never really been around the sport, why you haven't, or if it's just not interesting for you, what would get you more interested? You know, I think about entertainment, and I think about why football and the NFL is so big, right? It's televised, it's mainstream, NBA, huge. Major League Baseball, same thing. And it almost seems like even natural bodybuilding has been stigmatized to a point to where it's an extreme sport. And I do consider it a sport. You know, professionals are much different in our world because they're only paid according to their performance and if they win. They're not on salary. They spend thousands of dollars a year getting ready, competing, tans, hair, makeup for ladies, bikini, heels, all this stuff. And I think that gets lost in the fact that we do it not for vanity reasons or selfish reasons. We do it because there is a certain point to where it is healthier to stay rigid and to stay disciplined as opposed to just eat whatever you want, do whatever you want, and that can become a detriment to your health. Where have we gone wrong? And you've seen this in a segment of our population to where they will take it to the extreme, and maybe they don't listen to their coach as much. Maybe they go an extra and extended prep and it becomes unhealthy. Where have you seen that, and how do we fix maybe making this more mainstream and healthier for everyone?
Ooh, that's a phenomenal question, Matt. I feel if the athletes as a general whole will make themselves more relatable, if they promote them a little bit more, instead of making it about the objective result that you look on stage, make it about the journey that it took to get there. You know, you start sharing the whys, the why do you want to, you know, let's be realistic. There's every single athlete that gets to stage, there's some type of psychotic mindset that you go through and you push against, you know, when you're 4 weeks away from show, you're eating practically nothing. You feel like shit. You just feel absolutely like, but you still push on. And to share that why, to share that the other side of not wanting to do it. I feel like if we can make our athletes a lot more relatable to the basic population, that is what it's going to take for us to legitimize it. You know, one of the examples I think that we spoke about earlier is I remember back in the day, Fox Sports had a segment called Beyond the Glory. And what it did was take all of these athletes, these modern day gladiators, these perceivable demigods, and they made them human. They made them realize they've gone through some real adversity, got some real shit, you know? So sure, this athlete you might see is all about abs, chest, and low body fat. But if you realize that his why was because he faced something like an insecurity that he faced at a really young age, whether it's bullying or getting broken up with or something like that, and that's actually the grain that he's pushing against, then you're like, holy shit, he's just like me. He's going through the same shit that I'm going through. And I think that's kind of what we need to do is stop making it about your fucking Instagram. Stop making it about all the followers or the 20-second abs they're going to do. No. Start talking about the real reasons of why people default to working out. Find out the reason why people need to start eating better and becoming a better version of themselves. Those are the things that become more relatable. And that's how you create people into the sport. Like, oh, this guy is just like me. And the way that he handled his adversities through working out and through being on stage. And here's another thing too. The amount of insecurity that lies within our population is so significant. And what better way to kind of go against that than to kind of highlight these journeys and get to a pinnacle of our aesthetics and our athleticness.
Man, this is the best part about this, Alan. I don't have to ask questions anymore because I'm having the audience ask questions now. So if you're willing to take some audience questions, Derek Richardson, good to see you. And he says that's something Kai Green showed earlier in his career, and I fully believe and support that. And then Mike Matt, he's on X Spaces, good friend. He asked this question, and I'm curious to get your take on this, Alan. Do natural bodybuilders wait? Where'd it go? There we go. Do natural bodybuilders train the same way with regards to weights, reps on the enhanced bodybuilder side? How would you compare those two? Yeah, he jumped on that next question too. So we're going to get him back here in just a second. And Mike, that's a great question that you bring up. I think the answer is going to lie in depending on divisions, like bodybuilding and physique are different. They train differently. Whether you're enhanced or whether you're natural, it needs to be discussed that, in my opinion, both can work equally as hard or train equally as hard and maybe get different results. However, I believe natural bodybuilders in some cases, and this is not all, this is just a generalization, they need to train harder. They need to be more disciplined and they need to be more rigid. So I think that's one of the reasons why they pride themselves on, number one, getting a chance to showcase their results, because they cannot afford to take something that can make up for their lack of training or mistakes, or if they missed meals, or if they didn't do cardio, if they didn't do what their coach told them to. So I think there's a smaller margin for error on the natural side, or the tested side, I should say. And then when it comes to enhancement, and I think Daryl DeVore and I think Courtney and all of you who are on here, you might agree with this. There are certain things that you can manipulate, like a diuretic, for example, to look a little bit leaner or drier, which, I'm not going to get into the pharmacology of it or the Scientology of it. But I will say that when I was a natural athlete, I had to train much harder to get where I needed to go because my body was uncomfortable being where it was at. When you move your pendulum from middle to the right side and you're trying to tell your body, I need to get rid of body fat or I need to get leaner, well, our body fat serves a purpose. Our body fat is stored energy. So if you really want to get ultra lean, what you're doing is you're trimming down your fat stores and your energy stores, and your brain is saying, hey, hello, what happens just in case if there's an emergency, if I need more calories? Well, then you start burning your muscle. So there's a very fine line as far as how you have to get that all dialed in and get that going. So I want to go to Courtney here. And she said, change of subject. Can we move to your international? Can we move your international show date? I knew you were going to ask that. We talked about it at the coaches meeting today. I looked at doing everything I could because I want to brag on Mark Turriello and Mr. America for a second. For those of you who know, that is the longest running and standing bodybuilding show that we've had in our sport and industry. And unfortunately, I think that because of the way our date's set up, which, by the way, I was very excited about being there 2 years ago, guys like Mike O'Hearn, Tom Platz, legends in the sport, they are present, they are there. One was guest judging, one was just hanging out, and we were just talking. Those are the kind of things that the moments that you don't get very often. And so I'll just say that we've tried to move that. However, we have international athletes coming in. If we can make that accommodation, we might be able to bump it. But as it looks right now, we did put it intentionally on that Sunday. So that way Saturday is Mr. America. So Mark, we appreciate what you're doing and we're trying to do our best to get that going. Alan, great to have you back, my friend. This is fun, dude. We went to Courtney. I mean, Courtney and Tony are just living it up over here. And I see Danielle Passy and we see Kay Blues as well. You've got a great audience going. So what were we talking about? What did I ask you?
You asked me about what the difference is between enhanced and natural. And I got to be honest with you. This is hilarious that it just for whatever reason, anytime a difficult question comes up, my computer just knows, you know what? I need to restart. It's like, yes, I need to think about that question just a little bit more. But are we still
harder? How about that? We'll just go there. That might be easier.
Say
Natties or enhanced?
I feel, ooh, you know what? I feel they both put the effort in. If there's anything that I know personally about athletes that are both on the enhanced side and the natty side, first, the enhanced side, a lot of the enhanced athletes that I have met, they feel like they got to push it harder because they're enhanced. And because there's a big stigma, because there's an insecurity about being enhanced, and you better be big if you are going to be enhanced, I see a lot of athletes pushing it. On the same token, I see people that are natty athletes that, like I go work out at Gold's Gym, which is quite possibly one of the most energetic, competitive, ego-driven gyms. And I see the natty athletes, such as myself. I see someone that's enhanced, and I'm like, all right, game the fuck on. And but it's a great competition. As long as you make it like a good energy and you make a good competition, then I think it's healthy. But if there's one thing I've just seen, you just don't know what people are working out through. You don't know what their drive is, their motive. But to, kind of go into it, yeah, they're all pushing their asses off. That's for damn sure.
My answer when you decided that it was too difficult of a question, my answer was natural athletes, I think, in my opinion, have to train harder because they have to be more accurate, they have to be more consistent, and they have to be more precise. Because they're not afforded that little wiggle room where it's like, oh, I can take something to fix that. You can't hide that when you're a natural. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I can't really say because I don't know what is on the other end. But I do know, my posing coach, my very first competition, she was an enhanced athlete, and she kind of described what you were talking about. And from my understanding, this is my understanding, especially for us natty athletes, when we get closer to a show and our hormones are just kind of shot, it seems like on the enhanced side, there are other things to kind of remedy those lower natural hormones. At least that's from my understanding, but I could be wrong. So it's kind of hard for me to answer because I don't want to start stepping into a realm that I have zero clue on. But like I said, I've just seen it on both ends, everybody pushing their ass off, everybody working. And I think that's, kind of like what we talked about in the podcast that we both did. That's why I have a healthy respect for both natty and enhanced. And I don't try to make it about one way or the other.
A-Team Fitness said, I'd say naturals have to be more strategic for sure concerning hormones. And he agrees with you 100%. Now, this is going to be a fun question. We'll take the difficult questions out. When I think about people competing, what are some things, whether you're competing or whether you're not, what are some things that you have learned while you were competing or in this sport that have helped you to become healthier long-term?
I definitely can tell you that for me, I used to put competing on this pedestal, and I would think that I wasn't good enough to compete, or I needed to be something in order for me to compete. But I realized that it's just a story that I told myself. And if I've seen everybody else that kind of goes into competition or kind of perceives it, they just kind of look at it as a label, not understanding what it is that's holding them back from pursuing something that they want. So if there was anything that I've really learned, especially as it pertains to competing, is how many different areas of my life that I hold that same kind of stigmatism to, or that narrative towards, where I'm not good enough to do this, I'm not doing that. And when I started competing, going after something that I never thought I was good enough, and just having this objective result that I never really thought it was obtainable, I realized it was only the subjective mindset that was holding me back from anything that I really wanted to achieve. And I got to be honest, like I see that in so many, especially in the regular population. I see that in people that kind of want to step into competing, but they kind of don't want to because of, oh, I can't do this yet, just because of that. The amount of people that I've talked to that kind of want to compete, and as soon as I kind of shared my experience with that, and I shared, hey, well, is this really about you thinking you can't have your thighs big enough, or is it about something else that you keep telling yourself? And it's crazy on how many people realize, like, you think it's a physical game, but it's actually a mental and emotional game after a while. And that is the biggest aha, holy shit, this is what it's really about moment for me.
All right, you ready for the lightning round? There are so many comments coming through. I'm seeing 4 different screens right now, and I'm trying to manage 7 different platforms.
Oh
So,
man, I'm trying to manage this connection and make sure it doesn't fall out for the next hard question. You know what I mean? That's for sure.
We don't have any more hard questions. We're gonna have some fun now because you guys on X Spaces, you guys on Facebook, keep the comments, keep the questions coming in. If you do have a question now, answer me this: What do you typically drink when you were competing? You drank water. Are you still on that, or have you gone back to sodas and alcohol and whatever goes just goes?
Oh man, no. I definitely am all about water, water. I hate to say like the thirst is real, but it seems like ever since I got done with competing, I just I hate to say this like this, but more and more thirsty. That just doesn't sound right. But it just, I can't help it. And it also happens that, the older I get, my body's starting to change. And the Vegas Allen that was all throughout my 20s and the San Diego gas lamp Allen does not exist anymore. After I went through a competition, it seems like I can only have maybe 1 drink max until I'm just like, you know what? I got to go throw up. And it's just kind of crazy how quickly that's changed for me.
That's, what happened today. So I don't drink either. And I was watching because I noticed the coaches that we had, they don't drink. So they said the same thing. They were like, look, if I have 1 drink, I'm a completely different person. Just the first sip hits you. Now, food. What's your favorite food? What is your typical go-to in a given day?
Ooh, all right. So if I'm just eating regularly, it'll definitely be like organic brown rice and 85-15 lean beef. But if it's a cheat meal, oh my God, where do I start? Whether that's In-N-Out, a California burrito, carne asada fries, crumble cookies, the Mexican candy. I love Mexican candy, cereal, donuts. If you keep, I could keep going, man. I could really keep going with this. But pick any of those, and that's definitely something I love eating and devouring. And yeah.
How often do you have a treat meal?
So how often? Honestly, I have it whenever I want to, and that comes within reason, right? Obviously I crave more calorie things. I think I speak on behalf of a lot of bodybuilders where I work out to eat per se. But here's the thing. I think as soon as you start leaning down and take alcohol out, take all the processed food out, and you realize how your body can function when you're eating clean, you kind of, start, for me, my relationship food has changed. I realize that if I do devour the double doubles and the animal style fries and the vanilla shakes, oh my God, the way I'm talking about this, I might not be able to push that one off after the show. But the more I eat those kind of things, the more that it takes away from how present I am with episodes like this, how it takes away from my day-to-day functions. So it's definitely, they're very planned out. And if I feel like it, oh, hey, I kind of deserve this. It's a leg day and it's a leg day tomorrow. I could probably burn that off. But it's definitely planned out in the sense of, is this going to affect the next activity that I have planned? Is it going to affect how I show up in this event? And therefore I do say it's like whenever I want, but it is definitely very, very planned out.
All right. Now, thirsty, hungry, we just went everywhere. Now, Courtney and Tony asked a very specific question. This is a hard question. So let's see if he bolts after this one. What happened in Alan's life that got him to grow that porn stash?
Oh my God. All right. So there Courtney asked me this last night and I think I avoided it.
Let's make it public.
So there are, there's actually a real reason for it. So when I was in the Navy, every November, it was Movember. And right before I would go on deployment, we'd grow these stashes in November. But recently I found out a few years ago that Movember is actually in November is a men's health awareness. And, in a day and age where men on average live 10 years less than women because of the pressure that we put on our heart from not being able to express our emotions. Also the men on, when it comes to suicide, men are 4 times more likely to commit suicide than women. We're 2 times more likely to suffer something from a PTSD moment. And then we're also twice as likely to be addicted to substances of some dynamic. So the way that we bring awareness to that is by having a mustache and I guess a porn stash as well. But that's really what it comes down to. And for me, for anybody that has a mustache knows how challenging it can be when you have had a mustache for an entire month and shave it off the next day. So this is kind of me holding on to that awkward moment that's going to happen when it does trim off and when it does. And yeah, man, I think that's right now, since it's December, that's kind of what I'm pushing off from, is that awkward moment when my face just becomes bare and I look like I'm 15 again.
Just don't do a whole lot of podcasting, in that 3-week transition. So Courtney brings up a great question. Now I have a question. Can you grow a full beard?
No. So that's another reason why I grow the stash is I can only grow it in patches here and there. What's also funny about the mustache is when it grows in, I grow the inverse Hitler. So it grows out on the outsides first, and then it takes the inside to grow it a little bit. But ever since I got out of the Navy, I told myself I'll never go bareface again. And so now I just have like a little 5 o'clock shadow, and yeah, but the mustache definitely, comes in hard.
Good. Well, we haven't been canceled yet, at least on X Spaces, and we haven't been canceled on any of the keywords that we're keying in on. We don't normally talk about this kind of stuff, but hey, it's Friday. Why not?
Why not?
Chris Alejandro said, be very careful with that answer. And I like what you said. I'm thinking about just whole bringing awareness to this. And I think about how, especially with competitors, there's body dysmorphia, there's insecurity, there's relationship issues that are put on a strain when we're going through what we're going through. What would you say to someone who maybe might be going through that and trying to help them get back to, and I don't want to say normal because I don't think normal's the word, but just get back into a routine where things are manageable? Because I think we take it to an extreme to where we can put the blinders on and shove everything off to the side. And then all of a sudden we look up and we're like, man, what kind of damage did I do because I didn't pay attention? How would you get out of something like that if you were in that situation?
Can you ask that one more time again? That there was a lot right there. I want to make sure I'm answering this correctly.
I like to confuse you because I want you to make sure that, we'll see if we can get the in and out again. Cause I was looking at questions too.
Yeah, no, it starts to make me like, play with my mustache and think about just a little bit what's going on. Right.
If you had that curly, that would have been it.
Oh my God. Like Captain Hook, man, that would have been great.
Woo. You could do that. We saw Booker T do it and he had like 2 or 3 curls. We'll get back to question. What would you say someone who's going through it, when they get back into prep, what would you suggest to them to make sure they stay on prep, but they also don't just completely shut the other parts of their life down?
I would say I feel like there is a need for balance for sure. Right. I mean, you have to make sure that when you're going into a prep, I think on your most recent episode of people that shouldn't go into prep, I think that was like a phenomenal episode. I think that you should definitely plan out, the balance of everything and kind of see things in the future. But if there's anything that I have found very useful and very beneficial is if you're going to do anything that's going to take a lot out of you, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, figure out your why. Figure out why the hell you want to do that in the first place. Because if you start realizing that it's not about your why, and you might forget why the hell you're doing it, and something like prep that's going to take away from you, if you don't figure out why the hell you're doing it, you're going to start resenting prep in its entirety. So figure out why the heck you want to do that. And, in my experience working with regular people, there's so many people that I've talked to, like, oh, I want to get abs. I want this. I want that. And when I talk to them, it's like, well, is it about the abs or is it the lifestyle you think you're going to gain because you have those abs? And it's like this whole aha moment. They're like, oh my God, you're right. It's not about the abs. And again, you got to figure out what that is for you, and to go through an entire prep to get to that first place trophy, to get that championship and get your name on a trophy or something of that dynamic. It's never going to work out for you mentally, emotionally, if you can't figure out why the heck you want that goal so damn bad.
We both had our share of victories. what are some of the great habits that you still do, like on a daily routine now, to make sure that you're in check with this balance? Because I think some people lose the balance and they don't know how to get it back. So what are some of the things that you do daily to really make sure that your life is enriched?
Well, I for sure ask myself that same question that I just kind of proposed right here is why the hell am I doing this in the first place? Like I remember, so for this next season, for example, um, I wanted to compete. I know I spoke a lot about Daryl's show. I wanted to compete in the Florida Pro. It was definitely something I really wanted to do, but I realized, I wanted to do that because I wanted to inspire other people to compete. I wanted other people to get into the sport. So then I'm thinking like, well, how can I spread that message a lot better? Well, I could do that by my platform. I can do that by talking to more people and sharing their stories. And so it was a really interesting thing a conversation that I had with myself recently of like, wait, I tell myself I want to do prep, but why the hell do I ever want to do that again? Oh, the bigger picture is this why. So a lot of what I do with my life balance is always think about what are the things that are going to keep me congruent to myself on a regular basis. So one of the things that I do is like I meal prep. Meal prep's one of those things where, hey, the more that I have my food prepared out, the less anxiety I have towards what the heck I'm going to eat. The more things, I do a lot. I have a regular job. I have a business. I'm a parent. I'm a boyfriend. I'm a son. I'm a brother. And all of these hats require so many things out of me. So how can I minimize all the other stuff so that I can at least stay focused on that? And it's constantly working with, hey, what's this process? What's this? If I want to maintain working out, I got to do it sometimes really early in the morning because that's the only time I could fit it in. And I think it's by holding myself accountable to even the micro habits, working out in the morning, meal prepping, as well as still asking myself and making sure that I'm aligned with my intention. It's by constantly checking in with myself and being present in those moments that make me constantly withhold and stand to what the heck I want to do and what I'm meant to do.
Yeah. And I think you were really going somewhere with this. So I want to just kind of key in on this. Sleep. How many hours of sleep do you get a night?
So, ironically, I'm technically disabled from the military for insomnia. But I try to get into bed by 10:30, 11, and I try to get up by 5 or 6. And man, I got to tell you, that's a challenge in of itself. Working 12, 13 years in the military of rotating shift work, working nights, going through international date lines and working in engineering and reactor. What is sleep? I think that's the better question,
Well, I'm thinking about daily habits, and Wiser Tiger, happy Friday to you, my friend. We have our worldwide audience too. So we have people all over the world tuning in right now. So this is like even more pressure. I think about when Branch Warren said he was sleeping 4 hours a night, but he was still training 2 to 3 times a day when we were talking on the podcast. And it struck me that you can only sustain that for so long. If you want to live to be 80 or 90, you got to take care of yourself at 30 and 40. So you mentioned beef. That's a good go-to for you. Do you take vitamins? Just curious.
Oh man, I do. And what's so funny about that is I posted regularly about all the fish oils, the ginkgo biloba, the tongue ali, oh my God, the cod liver oil, the whole 9 yards, aminos, and this and the other. And that's why I find it hilarious when we call ourselves natural, because yes, we are natural, but damn, I'm on so many natural supplements where, well, I'm not really far from being enhanced, so to speak, in that principle. I mean, obviously there's differences, but I mean, I'd be hard pressed to find any natural athlete not doing the same things in that dynamic.
Yeah, and unfortunately, when we talk about natural, I think about even testosterone being a natural reoccurring hormone in your body. I think about estrogen. I think about, the way your thyroid is able to regulate your insulin, this and that and the other. We're not going to go off topic on that. However, I've noticed that the food claims to be more deficient by what we're eating today. It's very tough to find rich food that is great and packed and dense with the nutrients that the human body needs because everything is being consumed. So I would say that supplementally, you're doing yourself just to make yourself natural and regular. It's almost a must. Where did you find your deficiencies? Have you done a blood test and you kind of know what you need to take and what it does for you because you competed? Does that give you a better understanding?
Yeah. So I have not done a blood test, but I think we spoke about it recently where I recently got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called psoriasis, where it's, if I were to be really honest, a lot of my habits, like I said, the Vegas Allen, San Diego Allen, definitely, those drinking habits, those non-sleeping habits, putting my body through the ringer and eating God knows how much processed crap kind of put my immune system into the point in the imbalance that it is now. And by having to make my immune system a priority based off of where my body is at, I found the deficiencies in what I was doing naturally. And it's crazy to see how much of the basic population is still under that. Like, I heard something recently where like 60% of all mortalities can be attributed to the current health or the current diet that's going on right now. And 8-year-old, the average 8-year-old in the US right now has already consumed more sugar than any grown adult in a lifetime 100 years ago. And when you start putting those things in perspective, it's like, my God, the food and the things that we're eating, it's not just about how many carbohydrates and how many proteins. It's about the quality of those said foods. And it's just, my God, it's ever since I've kind of switched over and realized I wasn't doing things to promote my immune system, I've just gotten this holy crap, the basic population of how we eat, how we don't exercise. And and not to mention, I just found this too, a lot of the body positivity commercial ads and things like that are funded by all of these processed food companies. So when you see all these companies, and no offense to half of these commercials, but you got these morbidly obese people talk about how empowered they are with their life, that odds are that commercial is funded by some background because they want to be able to, feed that down your throat. And then the positive, healthy narratives, such as like the meat like patties and all of those, I forgot what am I trying to think of? The vegetable
burger,
the Impossible Burger, for example, right? And if you look at the ingredients of all the things that takes to make that, you're just like, what the hell is this? But it's got a lot of protein. It's got this, that, and the other. It's vegan. And it's so crazy on how many of these narratives and all of these other crap is being fed into the public, and they just assume it to be healthy because some outside source with a reputable source is telling them that that's healthy. And it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, if you put something in front of somebody long enough, they might tend to believe it, even if it's not true. And
oh my God, right.
You hit that with processed foods, with energy drinks, and anything. When we're going through tough times, and maybe we have to have a surgery, and we have to be prescribed something for pain. I think about all the things that does to your immune system, your metabolism, your organs, and you have no idea. And I got to tell you, it almost seems to me that people who are in what we do, and this is consistently, they understand the side effects of taking all that other stuff. They understand that eating better will lead to less trips to the doctor. Drinking less energy drinks will probably not have those heart palpitations with half the ingredients you can't even pronounce anyway. So you hit that right on the head. How do we, I don't want to say how do we stay away from it, because it almost seems like it's overtaking the supermarkets. So how are you conscious about making sure you stick with the right things as opposed to moving into that and falling into the trap of a commercial?
Well, I just go about based off of what I've already learned in competing. And what's interesting about that and everything that you're saying is why I promote natural bodybuilding. And that's why I promote for people to compete at least once, because in order for you to compete, or even in enhance, it doesn't matter. Competing at least once shows you that you have to eat clean. You have to work out consistently. You have to prioritize sleep. I mean, competition or not, this is a great ingredient and great recipe for people to be better versions of themselves, and then you add the competition part. Oh, you're doing all of that in lieu of becoming a better version of yourself. And then you get the emotional side of it as well, and the mental side of it. And, because I saw what it was like to put my body through an extreme, doing a bunch of alcohol, doing a bunch of drugs, eating a bunch of processed crap, to being 100% clean, eating clean, not drinking a lot more water, prioritizing sleep. And now that I see that difference, it's just more of like, how do I build upon what I already know? And then on top of that, it's like, why would I go back into that other crap if I know exactly how that's going to make me feel? You'd be an idiot to go back to say, oh man, I'm going to go wait to feel worse just to fit a societal norm of drinking or whatever. And what's nuts about that too is when you go out to any kind of a social setting and everybody's offering shots, everybody's offering drinks, and you're like, oh, I'm not drinking. Everybody looks at you like you effectively came out of the closet, for lack of a better way of saying it. They're like, what? Oh, you're not drinking. Alan's not drinking. And it's so crazy that a literal putting poison in your body is so accepted and as a norm that there's got to be something wrong or different about you if you choose not to do that. And that in of itself is a problem. So I think if you start realizing that mainstream society is programming you to be dependent on the big pharma, being dependent on my medical visits and whatnot. I mean, within where I live, there are 4 CVSs within a square mile. 4 CVSs. Like, how the hell does that make work? And I was watching a Laker game or whatever. I wasn't watching. I don't care about the Lakers. I was watching a Clipper game, right? And the Clipper game was sponsored by Cedars-Sinai. Like, why is a hospital sponsoring a basketball game? Like, why do some of these hospitals? And here's the thing: is I work in the research industry. The research, I work in hospitals. I work in research centers and universities, and the amount of hospitals that are just mainstream, so much money and how much funding that they have for some of the equipment that I work on, man, where do you think that money's coming from?
If they have eyes, somebody's going to spend the money to get them.
Ain't that a fact?
It was funny because there was a comment that says no drinks. Like when you're out in a bar, it's like, what's wrong? That's the first question that they ask. What's wrong? Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I just choose not to poison my body. Go figure. Yeah, and you Wisconsinites over there, I'm just saying, I'm from Illinois, so you guys need to clean it up there. I'm just saying. Now that we're in Texas, I can say that because Bud Light's out. I didn't say that publicly, but oh man, are we going to stir this up? But as we kind of look forward to kind of getting into landing this plane, I think about what you've gone through, Alan, and I know that you have a great story because you've shared it, and I really appreciate those moments to where people can be open and vulnerable. And so what drives you to share your story, and how do you really identify somebody who's struggling and maybe they need to hear what you have to say?
Man, oh man, Matt, you're gonna really get me to be vulnerable in here, huh? Damn it, you really got me here.
I can get you to tears. Mission accomplished.
Man, this might happen here. So I'm an adoptee. And I went into foster care at 5. I have a very vivid memory of my father beating my mother. I remember being taken from Korea to here in the States from my dad, and my dad being a degenerate gambler, being a womanizer, being the whole 9 yards, and then going into foster care. Now, I couldn't really tell you what was going on during the early years of that, but I can definitely tell you that by the time, as recent as a few years ago, I still had a lot of the traumas that were stemming from the years that I was adjusting to being fostered. And here's the thing, especially when it comes to the foster adoption community, 80% of that population has some kind of mental health disorder. And I could definitely tell you I'm not any different. And it didn't occur to me that all of these traumas were happening, or I was still fighting all of this insecurity, until during COVID, I had actually found my adoption paperwork. In the adoption paperwork, I was seeing my counselor, and the counselor started, literally documenting all of the things that I was going through. And it was crazy for me to see that even in my younger 30s, I was still going through the same stuff, and it just was masked differently. And so what that is called is looking at your childhood traumas and working through them is called inner child work. Now, so that's what really got me into bodybuilding. That's what got me into my very first competition. And like, I needed to, find something that I could be a better version of myself, work through all these things. And as soon as I got through my very first competition, November 2021, I had finally found, like, holy shit, all I needed to do was to invest into myself, think better of myself. And it made me realize all of the other other moments in my life that I really just shot myself down and kept myself to a limiting belief. Now, here's what the crazy thing is. So as I'm getting ready for my second competition, I had started this brand. I started Shift EQ. I started realizing, hey, a lot of the emotional traumas that I've experienced, whether it's being abandoned, whether it's going through a divorce, whether it's going through being suicidal, whether it's not thinking enough of myself, there's so many other people that experience the same things. Now, obviously, those triggers are different for everybody, but they still exist. And right before my second competition, I'm a February 22nd baby. And last year, in the year 2022, February 22 in the year 2022 fell on a Tuesday. And to make more synchronicity with the universe, I decided to go to Tulum. So 2022 in Tulum. And I'm just telling the universe, I'm gonna go out here, I'm gonna have a great time. But the universe is a lot wiser than me. And this is where I started speaking about the universe and alignment. So as I am there, I'm with a buddy of mine. He goes, hey, my aunt's staying over here. She's here at the same time. You guys will get along, I promise. I'm like, oh, whatever. So she asked me, oh, so what do you do? I noticed you have a brand. What is it about? I tell her everything. I found my adoption paperwork during COVID. I started working through my childhood traumas. And she just, out of nowhere, she just goes, oh, so inner child work, right? And I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah, inner child work. I was like, cool. She's like, oh, okay. That's pretty unique. And she's like, well, do me a favor. Look up my name. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, look up my name. Who the hell is this conceited? So her name, oh my God. Her name is, oh my God, her last name escapes me. But oh my God, what the heck is her name? It's Catherine. Catherine something. Oh my God, it's gonna bother me.
We'll Google it later.
We will Google it later, and I'll bring it on her. But Catherine had me look up her name, and the very first result that happened was that a book called the Inner Child Workbook in the 90s. She was the author and the pioneer of inner child work, and she wrote the Inner Child Workbook. And I'm sitting there like, what the hell just happened? Everything that I had just learned about myself, everything that changed and saved my life, everything that I have pivoted and created my entire brand about. And this is the woman that's responsible for it. And I honestly, I couldn't make it into words. It just did not. I mean, I didn't believe in synchronicities. I didn't believe in alignment. I didn't speak in universities, the universe, and the whole 9 yards. I mean, also don't speak into universities either. I guess that's not false. But it was the craziest thing in the world. And the rest of that trip, I was there for a week. We just spoke about creating our brand, serving the world. There's so much depression, so much, all of these other people that find traumas and handicap the rest of their lives and paralyze the rest of their life based off of that. And in a day and age where it feels like depression and adversity is fun to just sit in and feel sorry for yourself, like, here's an opportunity to share that you can make yourself a new version of yourself. And these adversities are actually there to show you what matters and what to work through. And she made a promise to me, and I made a promise to her to keep on spreading our work, spreading our brands, because it's meant to serve the world. And shortly after that trip, she ended up dying. And it was all of a sudden, she was the healthiest. She was 70 some odd years old. And she, oh my God, it kind of hit me, but I made an obligation to her. I gave my word. This is when I'm about to start tearing up. Damn you, Matt. No, it's all good. And in my mind, if this can change my life, if she's responsible, if I might have made a promise to her that if I just keep sharing my story, share other stories in their own respective version of it, then I can show the world that, hey, all you got to do is just invest into yourself and think highly of yourself and stop using traumas as a crutch to be worse, but yet make the option and make the choice to become better. That's where it all comes through. And I got to tell you, man, I owe that to her. And Yeah, that inner child work and the universe and whew, yeah, you got me in a state, man. That's nuts.
Well, I'm just going to give that a quick second to breathe, because a lot of times, we can have fun, we can joke, we can say things that we think people want to hear, but sometimes the things that they need to hear are not the most pleasant. And you were made aware of what you needed to do, and still to that day that sticks with you. And I think that to me was like, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and we were speaking about that offline. And I don't know how many people know that story, but to me, it just shows the shift EQ, what you're doing, what you've been through, and what you're going to do are all going to come together. And everything that you're accomplishing right now, you might not see, but you never know who watched this, whether it be now or syndicated, and say, light bulb. They might know Catherine. They might have done inner child work. They might have had, foster care. They might have had the same type of parents, broken families, things that we think we're victims of, and they just continue to hold on to us. And finally, they're able to let go when we realize that we're not a slave to them. And that to me is just everything that you said. It hits.
Yeah. And that's kind of what the basis of shift EQ. So if, for those of you guys don't know what EQ is, it's your emotional intelligence. And here's the thing is, we're always taught, like, from a divorce or being suicidal, the things that I can, it's like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? But for me, it's, if you could shift it into, instead of happening, why is this happening to me? Ask yourself, why is this happening for me? And that's where the work starts. The work starts there. And that's the beauty of it, right? The beauty of it is to work through all of those traumas, work through everything. And here's the thing, if it isn't worth working through, then why would it hurt so much? And that's the reality, and if there's anything that I've just learned, is that just things that happen on the emotional spectrum, whether it's pain, whether it's love, whether it's anything, they all have a profound impact, and you got to figure out what it is and why that has such an impact, and work through it or work on it. Otherwise, it's going to trap you, and you can put yourself there. But here's another thing: being a better version of yourself and working through it is an active choice. I'm just like anybody else. I go through my own shit. There are mornings where I'm just sitting there like, God damn, the snooze button is so much bigger than just hitting the gym. Or, man, I want to eat that double, but this and the other. But, that's what it is. It's finding the comfort in the uncomfortable moments and figuring out what it is that means more to you, and how can you become a better version of yourself.
Yeah. And thank God we don't have In-N-Out Burger down the street. That was my
it's bound to happen too. Yeah, in Texas, you guys have that crap called Whataburger, and I'm very offended as a Californian that a Texan even has the audacity to compare Whataburger to a fresh made In-N-Out double. Like, how dare you? Like, no, look at if Whataburger is great. If I was constipated and I wanted to get everything out, then I would have a Whataburger. That's phenomenal for that moment. But if I wanted to actually enjoy my burger and feel like, oh my God, this is a great burger, definitely In-N-Out. And I don't even know why I have to bring this up. It should be very obvious.
You're getting a lot of hate comments right now.
That's fine with me, man. I mean, the truth kind of hurts to some people. I get it.
And you know what's even crazier is Whataburger is we all know it's better. Secretly, deep down too. We do have In-N-Out Burger here in Katy, and not very many people visit it. But you are getting me hungry, not thirsty, but hungry. We appreciate you. And the Shift EQ podcast, you've done tremendous work. Alan, how can people find that? How can people follow you?
So on Instagram is shifteq.podcast, and also on YouTube it's Shift EQ podcast. And I'm also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So any of those platforms, they're definitely get a hold of those things. Let me know. I also enjoy feedback on all of them, whether it's good feedback, bad feedback, all feedback. Please, by all means.
You're definitely going to get the In-N-Out feedback. That's for sure. So I got to tell you, man, I really enjoyed tonight. I was looking forward to it. I know a lot of people were. We got text, we got emails, we got messages. Very interactive throughout. Courtney and Tony, thank you. Mike, thank you. Chris, I see you. We've got Daniel Gray on, Nathan Ulrich. Man, I got to tell you, these are the times that I live for, to know someone's story, to where if Alan touched you in some way, not inappropriately, but like touched you in a way to where it like really was helpful. You know, because you never know these days. You got to be PC.
Oh my God, right? Jeez.
And we are not. So that's unfiltered, uncensored. And I told you that when we started. You never know what you were going to get. But I just have to say, Alan, I definitely appreciate the time. It's been a pleasure. So many great comments, so many great feedbacks, you know, already coming in. And I just want to say we appreciate you and continue to support you. So if there's anything we can do, we definitely want to have you back on if you'd be our guest.
No, absolutely. And for everybody that's on there, thank you all so much. I know there's a lot of people that support as well as want to, you know, promote this sport as well as just all communicate and be this with this great community. And I really love you all. I really, really do. And I can't thank you guys enough. Seriously.
Well, Alan, you will be able to watch and we can go back and restudy what we can talk about next time and see if we can stir the pot a little bit. So thank you again for your time. Guys, follow Alan K. ShiftEQ.podcast is where you're going to find him on Instagram. And I think we're going to go back. We're going to be releasing some clips. Oh, you even have a shirt and you got a hat too?
A hat. We have a logo. We're coming out with a shirt like a motivational quote shirt here very, very soon. So definitely be on the tune for that. I'm definitely excited for that shirt launch. That's for sure.
Hell of an episode 5 for season 4. So thank you so much, Alan. Guys, gals, we will tune in next Friday. We'll have a new guest, new information, new content. Follow Alan. We're going to have a little fun in the future, my friends. So thanks. Take care, guys. Have a great weekend and enjoy.